Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to my podcast,
where I tell you about not only Nashville's great baseball history and traditions,
shot to right, a one-hop liner,
but certainly about its past. And you will hear a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
There are great stories about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphurdale, and the players, coaches, and fans who love everything about baseball. And every once in a while, you will get to hear from a special guest who will share their fondness and even passion for the great game.
It's a high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
I have said on occasion that there are a couple of things that you need to play a baseball game, and that is a bat, a ball, no gloves, because in vintage baseball, they don't play with gloves. In 1864 rules, there were no gloves invented, and you need a place to play. And all of those things are true, but if you're going to play an organized game, somebody has to umpire. And I'm going to title this segment of my podcast, Trouble with Umpires, because there have not been easy moments with umpires sometimes. George Stallings, a famous manager, was on his deathbed on May the 13th, 1929, when his doctor asked why the former baseball manager had a bad heart. And Stallings was reported to have said, "Bases on balls, Doc, those damned bases on balls." He may not have had enough time to give further details, but couldn't Stallings have been more specific? Was it the failure of his pitchers to throw strikes or the failure of the umpire to call them? Now, a pitcher aims to throw strikes. That is what they do, or at least what they want to do, at least in most cases. And on the other hand, umpires use their judgment to call them as they see them. This is a role they take on with dedication and commitment, despite the one word that has haunted them since Abner Doubleday was knee-high to a shin guard, and that word is judgment. If Stallings had been able to continue the discussion, he would most certainly have blamed the umpires. It is a great yoke for arbiters to carry, that the decisions of umpires caused his death. Umpires have been criticized and disparaged for years, yet they continue to uphold the integrity of the game. Once again, in most cases, there have been a few cases that was not true. And the pay scale is pretty good. But defending one's decision in the old days could lead to fights among players, managers, and even the fans. The umpire's job can often become a thankless one, too, as being judge and jury usually leads to having to take cover, but they stand their ground, showing resilience in the face of adversity. One such incident occurred in Nashville on September the 12th, 1915. The Chattanooga Lookouts had taken the first game over the Nashville Vols at Sulphurdale when all hell broke loose. In the bottom of the second inning, umpire Dan Fenninger removed the Nashville outfielder George Kircher from the coaching box. And when Vols manager Bill Schwartz argues against Fenninger's action, unhappy fans tossed bottles from the grandstands, and the trash covered the field. The disturbance continued for nearly 10 minutes as a few fans began to infiltrate the playing field before being dispersed by an officer. He arrested 4 spectators who were hurling bottles onto the field. Play resumed, but at the bottom of the third, umpire Ted Breitenstein twice reversed a decision at second base. And another disturbance began as a bottle aimed at Fenninger struck Nashville catcher Gabby Street on the arm. So Fenninger forfeits the game to the Lookouts 9-0 after the crowd surged onto the field and threatened Chattanooga manager Kid Everfield. He had climbed into the bleachers to take a bottle away from a raucous fan who had hit him on the head with a thrown bottle. And Lookout players removed their leader from the fray and interceded in the leader's verbal barrage. Now, Stallings, a pugnacious bulldog of a manager, would have sided with Everfield's actions and taken great delight in those two particular umpires' plight. However, shielding oneself from players, managers, and fans was not always the umpire's responsibility, and leagues began to take a protective approach, understanding the importance of umpires in maintaining order. Havoc was not to reign at every disagreement, and the umpires played a crucial role in ensuring this. For example, Southern Association President Robert H. Ball must have had enough of such shenanigans and, in October of 1916, decreed that beginning with the 1917 season, any player put out of a game by an umpire would automatically be fined $10. That's quite a bit of money to be fined to be taken out of your salary in 1917. Rules of conduct that included fines did not always make for keeping the peace. For example, on June the 25th, 1941, Nashville pitcher Boots Poffenberger was suspended for 90 days by league president Trammell Scott. It seems Boots was upset with umpire Ed Dutch Hoffman's calls, and in the fifth inning of the previous night's game had been ordered off the field by the arbiter after continual griping and use of abusive language. Instead of leaving the field, Poffenberger turned and threw the ball at the umpire, hitting him in the chest protector but not injuring him. In commenting on Poffenberger's suspension, his own manager, Nashville manager Larry Gilbert, declared, "I'm through with him. He won't pitch for Nashville anymore." Now, Poffenberger had won 25 games the previous season and had won 7 and lost only 3 up to the unfortunate confrontation. But he was known as a bad boy pitcher, and he never pitched for Nashville again. We must hand it to the ump for keeping his head in the game, too. And on April the 25th, 1948, in Mobile, Buster Boguski of Nashville and the Bears' George Shuba were both ejected for scuffling at second base after Shuba's hard slide in an attempt to break up a double play. As the two were rolling in the infield dirt, Mobile's Stubby Greer, who had been at second, ran home, and when Nashville coach George Hennessy protested umpire Red McCutcheon's decision to count the run, Hennessy was tossed. And on July 18 that same year, umpire Bill Brockwell ejected 4 Nashville balls in their 10-3 loss in Chattanooga. And Buster Boguski was a part of that again. He was sent packing for arguing a strike decision. And manager Hugh Poland was sent to the showers after continuing the debate. And Johnny Liptak was chased for a comment as he passed Brockwell on his way to coach first base. And the fourth man to be ejected was Ziggy Jasinski, who had taken Boguski's place at bat and was banished after making another remark that Brockwell just did not like. Somebody has to be in control, don't they? In another game in 1952, Stallings would have been upset at the umpires for an entirely different reason. On April the 25th, the start of the game in Nashville was delayed by 12 minutes due to the belated appearance of umpires Walt Wheelage and Auntie Mitchell. They said we were rubbing up the baseballs. Well, 12 minutes cannot be so bad, but isn't that another thing umpires do before each game? Were there more baseballs than they could manage that day? Well, a few guys give the position a bad name, too. In 1903, J.E. Folkerth, the baseball umpire who had passed bogus checks of $25 to Nashville manager Newt Fisher and 3 others, was sentenced in criminal court to 3 years in the state prison. And crime does not pay, even if you receive the benefit of the doubt. But steps were taken in the 19th century to hire and keep the best umpires. For organizing the inaugural Southern League for 1885 included hiring a 4-man umpire staff at $70 per month and $3 per diem for expenses. And that was decent pay by some standards. 7 years earlier, in 1878, National League teams had to pay umpires $5 per game. And by the end of the season, 5 of the 8 clubs requested that the league president consider increasing that amount. Keeping them on the staff was hard if they were underpaid and could not cover their expenses. The owners did not want to pay for it out of their own pockets either. Beyond that, it took one season for conscientious owners to realize the importance of having their games overseen honestly and fairly. It was still a gentleman's game, and it was to stay that way. And going nose to nose with an umpire to argue a call can be hazardous to one's health, as not all umpires remained gentlemen. On October the 22nd, 1933, while managing a barnstorming team playing in Mexico City, Nashville's Lance Richburg was struck in the face by Cuban umpire Senor Hernandez after Richburg disputed a decision at home plate. And for the remainder of his career and beyond, Richburg suffered from the effects of sciatic rheumatism. Could his encounter have been the cause? And then there are substitute umpires. Consider the case of James Hillary, a multi-talented player for Nashville's first professional team in 1885. A gentleman? Yes. Qualified to call balls and strikes when no league umpire is present? Yes. But how long does the honor of an umpire last, no matter that his reputation precedes him? On April the 1st, 1885, before a hometown crowd of 1,500, a clear picture of what lies ahead begins to focus. The newly formed Nashville Americans topped the visiting Clevelands by a score of 15-7 that day in an exhibition game. Now, there's nothing unusual about that, but James Hillary served as umpire. Was he filling in for an ump who did not show up for the game? Had umpires in the fledgling league not been assigned for exhibition games? Well, there's no evidence that he did anything besides discharge his duties as requested and expected. But something happened supporting the idea that all umpires and players should always hold themselves to the standards set before them. Without more detail, other than reporting its occurrence, on June the 1st of 1885, visiting Chattanooga won over Nashville 6-2. And after the game, the directors of the Nashville Baseball Club indefinitely suspended third baseman James Hillary, yes, the one who had umpired a few months before, was suspended for drinking and assessed a $50 fine. And although he returned 10 days later, a precedent was set. Rogues, rhubarbs, and umpires, they're just part of the game. And in defending the standing of his trade in his book, Standing the Gaff, published in 1935 by longtime Southern Association umpire Harry Steamboat Johnson, well, he may have said it best when he wrote, "A doctor has an undertaker to cover his mistakes, and umpires don't. When a physician makes a mistake, it is buried and forgotten. When I make one, it lives forever. Play ball." Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to this story about umpires for games that were played in Nashville and the Southern Association and other players. God love them. We can't live without them, I guess. Maybe they'll all be robots before too long. I hope you enjoyed this episode of National Baseball History, and I hope you'll listen again another time. Thanks for listening.